Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
What I'm saying now is a continuation of talk that I began at the Hare Krishna Youth Center, which is in another part of the Twin Cities. I spoke this morning and we just finished there and came here, so I think many of the attendees here were also there. But anyway, if you're at all familiar with the ethos and activities and personality of Bhaktisiddhanta Katha, then you can pick up anywhere. At that time in Bengal, Vaishnavas were considered among the worst people in human society, hardly above the criminal class. Everything in those days was caste-wise in Hindu society and in Muslim society. So just as I was saying, class of criminals, so criminals, they were also mostly by caste. If you're born in a farmer's family, you become a farmer. If you're born in a potter's family, you become a potter. If you're born in a priest's family, you become a priest. If you're the son of a criminal, you become a criminal. Thief. Another Thuggy. British term. So similarly, the Vaishnavas had become considered a caste, Boshta. Caste means jati. Many of them, they were born out of the illicit connections between so-called Vairagis, Vaishnava Vairagis, and their so-called Sevadasis. These Sevadasis were mostly widows, those who were pre-menopausal especially, they could have children, or women who had been rejected from respectable society because of illicit sexual connections. That could happen. They have illicit sexual connection and then they're thrown out of the house and they can't go to their lover's house. So they have nowhere to go and they go and join an ashram and become... Where do they go? They join some women's ashram, or they know they won't go women's ashram, but they would take shelter in the ashram, or the akra, it's called, of the Vaishnavas, renounced Vaishnavas, who required some such women to perform their parody of Rasa Lila. And the children that were born out of such illicit connections, they were known as Boshta, which is a corruption of the term Vaishnava. In Bengali, Vaishnava is pronounced Vaishnava, so that became Boshta. So it was, what was going on in the name of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult was the worst. And what was considered the best, highest class at that time, due to the British influence, in Bengali society, was to be British educated, English speaking, with European tastes in literature, religion in many cases, dress style, and so on. So Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur had been raised in the family of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Himself was enigmatic in the sense of being British educated, having a high position in government service, was respected for his good character, and at the same time he was a Vaishnava. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur took this enigma for the sake of preaching. Enigma means something like dvidha. You've got the different facets of the phenomenon which don't seem to fit together very well. Opposing symptoms, contradictory symptoms within one person. Such a person is called an enigma. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur took this further for the sake of preaching Krishna consciousness. He renounced the world formally as a sannyasi. I got lost in the morning. I was speaking about how he was in the service, he was paid by the Maharaj of Tripura, but he left that service due to not wanting to associate with them. After he read everything in the Maharaj's library, that was of interest to him, so that he became almost literally, a walking encyclopedia. Due to the politics in the office, he exposed corruption. In this way, he saved the Maharaj of Tripura maybe thousands of rupees. In those days, one rupee was valuable, and that was divided into annas. So the Maharaj of Tripura, he resigned because he didn't want to continue with this thing. The Maharaj of Tripura was so satisfied with the service that he'd done that he gave him a lifetime full payment pension, even though he was still a young man. It saved him so much money, and he was so impressed. He was the two jobs he had to do. One was some official work, and another thing he was supposed to prepare a biographical account of the history of the kings of Tripura. So for which he had access to the library and so on. But he left that, and then he started the school Jyotish. But gradually he withdrew from all these things, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur had gone to live in Puri, living just like a Vairagi. The Vairagi would live in one place, generally in Navadvip, Dham. At that time, Mayapur was not known. No, actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur he had discovered the actual birthplace, but still it wasn't so very long. And mostly in Vrindavan, Navadvip Dham, and not so much in Puri, but still some Vaishnavas. I'm saying Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he would also mix with people like Shishi Kumar Ghosh, and also with this Radharaman Charandas Babaji, who was another who, from an educated background, who had, you see, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wasn't the only person he wasn't the only Bengali from a British educated background who wanted to promote the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult and culture is very respectable. There was Shishi Kumar Ghosh was a prominent person, and also Radharaman Charandas Babaji was from a respectable background, and he was a Vairagi, renunciant, but he gathered around him young men to be brahmacharis, I don't know if they call them that, but they would also become Vairagis, and many educated people, married people also became his disciples. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a loose alliance with all these people because he wanted to uplift the name of Vaishnavism from the gutter in which these false Vairagis had pulled it into. But at the same time he had philosophical differences with Radharaman Chandas Babaji, who is the founder of the Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam Hare Krishna Hare Ram. He made this chanting which Bhaktivinoda Thakur was opposed to. There were serious problems with him because he introduced this chanting. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had introduced the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. But this Radharaman Charan said no. That Hare Krishna mantra is only to be chanted silently because it's a Shruti mantra. It's from the Upanishads, Kali Santana Upanishad. So it shouldn't be chanted among everybody. However, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is recorded in Chaitanya Bhagavata saying Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhu Bolilam. Ei Mahamantra, Yeha Japa Diya Sabe Kariya Nibandha. Yeha Hoite Sharva Shiti, Oive Shabha Sharva Kam Kaala. He said that this is the Mahamantra, everyone should chant it incessantly. He said, Yeha Japa Diya. By this, everyone can attain perfection. And there's no need for any other method. So, Radharaman Charan Das Babaji said, you see, he said japa. So he distinguished between japa and kirtan. Although Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Eha hoite sharva siddhi hoive shobha. Pralame Mahamantra, Eha japa kiya shabe. Everyone can attain perfection by chanting this mantra. But everyone means that everyone is not eligible for Shruti mantras. So there's some apparent contradiction there. If it's not for kirtan because it's japa, then it should be silent. But then it's for everyone. So this was a big controversy. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, see all these things he was fighting with all the time. These things still come up nowadays, but in those days it was a big issue. Nowadays you'll find there's big issues in society. People are talking about caste and lower castes have to come up and women's rights and Pakistan and Hindu Muslim and this all. But at that time I spoke in the morning also, the big political issue was there about the British governance, which still, for all it's spoken about, actually it seems that many people in India weren't that concerned about it, for all Gandhi, this, that. And there is one anecdote narrated in this book, Freedom at Midnight, which is written by some Westerners, and it talks about, it's written in a novel form, it's a small book, and it summarizes the lead up to and the time following the declared political independence of India. So after all this big thing, hoo-ha, and British, and getting the British out, massive parade, but it describes how one farmer in a field somewhere in India, someone went up to him and said, "Why are you working today? You should be celebrating." He said, "What for?" He said, "Well, it's the British have been thrown out of India. We're independent. He said, who are the British? It didn't affect a farmer living in a field, plowing his field. Probably more likely in the states that were governed by kings, by maharajas and nawabs, just like here. It was not directly ruled by the British, the princely states it was called. So, more for people, religious issues might be more. Just yesterday we were discussing how this Chinnajiya Swami had in a mass meeting called by Vishwa Hindu Parishad. Where was that? Here? Here in Twin Cities. Had stated that Shaivism and Vaishnavism, there's no difference, we should all come together. And my comment on, because I was saying how actually the Chinnajiya Swami, by his promotion of Vaishnavism, especially among the Telugu people, has saved many of them from the tendency to worship this Patapurti Sai Baba, Shirdi Sai Baba. So I said, well, that's a good thing. But then you pointed out, well, you said this, which isn't philosophically correct. There is a difference between Vaishnavism and Shaivism. Although Bhaktisiddhanta said, we don't subscribe to this dispute. But practically nowadays, that the point is that for centuries there was so much rivalry between Vaishnavas and Shaivas. Vishnu is Bhagavan. Vishnu is supreme. No, Shiva is supreme. Severe difference. Madhvacharya, he made some. Well, I think that may not be so much in Karnataka because of the influence of Madhvacharya. In Tamil Nadu, the Iyengar, Vaishnava Brahmins, they had a rule: you should never go in a temple of Shiva. Even if you're in the forest and the tiger is chasing you and you come across a Shiva temple, you don't go in there even to save your life. Better to get eaten by the tiger. So, that's what we call fanatical nowadays. If you're eating rice and you come across a stone, you say, good, that's one more thing you're destroyed. So, such a mood. But that's all become, and then among the Sri Vaishnavas, Varigalai, Tendalai, court cases, so among the traditionally religious disputes were major disputes. In North India, the Vaishnav Shaiva thing was to a large extent pacified by Tulsidas with his Ramcharitmanas. And in Bengal, that there was the divide between Vaishnavas and Shaktas. It's a very severe rivalry was going on. But that became, the two became harmonized in Ramakrishna's Jata Mat Tata. He was a worshipper of Kali, who also worshipped Chaitanya. So it's all the same. But Bhaktisiddhanta says, no, it's not all the same. Everything is not all the same. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast removed. The idea that ultimately everything is all the same is the philosophy of impersonalism, which is also a subject of great contention between the followers of Shankaracharya and the followers of the Vaishnavacharyas, especially Ramanujacharya, and even more so Madhvacharya. There was some famous debate, it was between Akaya Dikshit and some Madhva scholar. And the referee was Sri Vaishnava, as they were considered to be in between Advaita, Vishishtadvaita. So this religious issue, they're issues that people get excited about, the so-called Indian mutiny, came about because it was rumored, or actually it was so, that the sepoys, that means the ordinary soldiers, nowadays we call them Jawanas, in their guns, because there was some system, they had to take the bullets out of a canister, and they were lubricated they had to do it with their teeth and pull it out, and they were lubricated. It was rumored it was with animal fat, and it was rumored that among the Muslim sepoys that they'd used pig fat, and among the Hindus that they'd used beef fat. So that was at least the immediate cause of the uprising, which the British called a mutiny. So religious issues were very big, and whenever Hindus and Muslims didn't like each other, they might throw a pig into the mosque, or a killed pig into the mosque, or killed live or dead, killed cow into the temple, and that was guaranteed. Then, okay, it's time for trouble. Even recently in Udupi, similar things. When I went there a few years ago, I was told there'd been a lot of upset because some cows were killed in the streets. So religious issues were very big, and although there is this feeling everyone should live in peace and tolerate everyone, but respect others' opinions. But the point is that people, they took religious issues very seriously, whether for right or for wrong, or the right way or the wrong way or whatever. But religious issues were very big issues. And this, in Bengal, this Ramakrishna had made this, promoted this idea. Well, actually he wasn't an outgoing preacher, but people came to him, and his teachings have become widespread. We should all live peacefully, it doesn't matter what religion you follow, respect all different opinions. But Bhaktisiddhanta wasn't like that. He wanted to establish that there is right and there is wrong, and it's not just a matter of opinion. But Thakur, he promoted the idea that we should respect different religious paths. There's one song of his, and also in Chaitanya Shikamrita, he wrote that when we see different people worshipping in the church and the mosque, we should see them worshipping the same God. Don't be inimical to them. But at the same time, in Chaitanya Shikamrita, he wrote that although we should see others are worshipping God in a different way, same God, but at the same time, if there's anything which is actually wrong in their teaching, whether it's in someone else's system of religion or this system of religion that we ourselves are following, then we should not just accept that blindly. We should stand against it. We should stand for the truth. So Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, his whole strategy was to present the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, which means Krishna, to everyone, but to do so requires to remove the untruths and misconceptions which are prevalent in society. And because there had been no forceful preachers of the truth, so many untruths were prevalent in society. Yeah, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was friends with others, took their help. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he took a different strategy. He took sannyas. And with the respect that comes, that is offered to a sannyasi by some people, not by everyone. It's not that everyone respects sannyasis, even in traditional Indian culture. The Mimamsakas, they think that seeing a sannyasi, even to see a sannyasi, Kama Mimamsakas, they think even to see a sannyasi is most inauspicious. You know that? In your culture, Smarta culture. The idea is that sannyasis, they're near Agni, they gave up all their duties. They should be grihastas, follow their duties in grihasta life. So they're going against the Vedic way, according to Mimamsakas. It's not everyone who accepts that. When Shankaracharya went to Mahishmati, to the house of Mandana Mishra, they didn't want to let him in. They thought it was a very bad thing happened today. A sannyasi came to our house. Most people would think a very good thing for sannyasi, they were very bad thing. It's a symbol of our dharma. But generally some respect is there, and the Ramakrishna mission, which was not founded by Ramakrishna, but by Vidyanagar, had established sannyasis who were respected as being religious people. So the Gauriya Math, in some ways, which was founded by Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, was in some ways following the exoteric aspect, in the kind of language that Bhaktisiddhanta used, of the Ramakrishna mission, which had monks, sannyasis, well organized, centrally organized. So in many ways, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur followed the lead of that. To distinguish from the Prakrita Sahajiyas, the bogus so-called Vaishnavas, who were considered most disrespected. It's an insult. If you want to insult someone, you call them a Vaishnava. Don't mix with the children should be taught, don't mix with bad children. I don't know if that's going on in the world these days, but that idea was there. That you have to protect your children. Don't mix them up with children from bad families. So the children of a respectable family. Don't mix up with those Vaishnava children. Bad. They become bad. They're very bad. So Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur wanted to show that the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rupa Raghunatha Vani, that is the topmost, that is the highest. People think the British, what they are teaching is the highest. The Bible is the highest. Or the Smarta Brahmanas, they may say our recitation of the Vedas is the highest. So he wanted to show this is most respectable and he wanted to establish the truth of the teachings of Rupa Raghunath. There had been no such preacher and teacher widely teaching the truths of Gauravani, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. At the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there was Nityananda Prabhu. He widely spread Vaishnavism, but mostly in a manner for simple people. The thing is that, we have to get into all historical, social analysis here, because the Shastric and philosophical teachings, mostly when among Brahmins, people of Brahmin background, there was the Brahmins in Bengal who were Vaishnavas, who were not Smartas or Shaktas. They were Nityananda Vangsha or Advaita Vangsha. These were the two prominent schools. Nityananda Vangsha, they gave initiation to anyone who came along, and Advaita Vangsha, they like to initiate Brahmins or people of higher caste. Now among these Advaita Vangsha, Nityananda Vangsha Goswamis, were many who were deeply learned and wrote books. There was also in Orissa and in Mednipur district, which is now divided into East and West, with what is part of West Bengal. Traditionally it's considered part of Utkal or Orissa. So in Mednipur district and Utkal, Orissa, the Vaishnava influence was going on under the Shamananda Sampradaya, among whom the Goswamis, they were very learned also, but this learning didn't reach the common people. For the common people, there was Chaitanya Bhagavat, Narottam Das's songs, and the songs of many Vaishnava Padakartas, or those who composed various songs in Bengali. But systematic education in Vaishnavism wasn't there among the common people. The deep education was there for a few and very little for others. Although many Vaishnavas, they would know, and when I'm talking about Vaishnavas here, I'm distinguishing from the lowest class. There may be others who are not so bad, but they would do kirtan, and many people would know many verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat. But there was no proper systematic training in that, and as Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur noted, Vaishnavism was going on in Bengal. Even the best manifestations of it were going on according to caste lines, which was strangling it, because the whole caste system was beginning to break down with the influence of the British education. There are so many factors. Education, traditional education in India was in Shastra, mostly for the Brahmins, and then others, the Kayastas would also have some education in administration, either state administration, business administration. It would help the Vaishyas, the Guptas, and others. But then the British came along and they introduced British education without considering caste or any such thing. It was mostly boys not girls, mostly boys from Kayasta backgrounds, some from Brahmin background. Kshatriya class was very strong or very Kshatriya-like in Bengal. So with the British education and then urbanization, the whole caste system was beginning to break down, but the same complaint against the Brahmins as all over India, that they were just living parasitically, taking, especially the gurus, they would take from their followers all facilities and give them only blessings in return, but nothing tangible. They're supposed to give teachings, to teach. But they were giving no teaching. So one upshot of this was that in Bengal, of course there are many, many factors involved, but there was a lot of conversion to Islam, not to Christianity, interesting, to Islam, and there was also many Thakur, quoting one respected Babaji, Tota Babaji of Navadvip, what they called upper sampradayas, the people who would claim in some respect or fully to follow Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but they rejected the monopoly on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult that was claimed by the Advaita Vangsha, Nityananda Vangsha, and then there's also the Narottam Parivar, Gadadhar Parivar, and so on. Different traditional orthodox lines of Vaishnavas, there were certain families that claimed a monopoly on initiation and teaching and all these things. I was saying, but among the upper sampradayas, which were also the Jat Gosai, so that's not exactly a correct statement to say that they all came out in opposition to the Jat Gosai. So the tradition, I don't know how much all of you follow all of this, but anyway, I hope someone follows something of it. But others, they came, especially the Katha Bhajas, were a sect in Bengal at that time, who are very small now, but they were very prominent at that time. And they didn't actually speak much about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at all. But they mostly came out of the lower classes. And when we say low, that means lower, even Namashudra, lower than Shudra. And they spoke about how the Vaishnavas, it's a corrupt company. They used business language. Exactly why, I don't know. I haven't investigated that much. So, and it was this business language that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, all Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when he talked about the Nam Hatha, this whole concept was actually taken that there's the vendors, the sellers, and there are the purchasers, there are the goods, there is the method of payment. So the sellers, they are the preaching Vaishnavas, the buyers are people in general, the goods is the holy name in the Namhata, the method or the medium of purchase, instead of money, it's Shraddha. So and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur presented himself as a sweeper in the Namhata, and in some places he gave himself as a dalal, a broker. He's introducing people, and you also, when you get love of Krishna, you have to give some to me as my payment also. So this language was all adopted from the Katha Bhajas, who they were using the language of the company, where the company was a common term in Bengali at the time, meaning the East India Company. So I often say that this book is just a little introduction, but actually there's so much more if you want to get into it. I don't think anyone's fully researched all these things. I'm just talking in a general way now. So the Katha Bhajas, they rose up. They say in our in our company we don't sell adulterated goods, because that's also a common thing. I don't know so much now, but definitely, if you buy ghee, Katha ghee in the market, that means not in a can coming from Amul, or in Tamil Nadu they have Arokya dairy, and I don't know what it is here. Okay, that's supposed to be fairly trustworthy. But if you buy it loose in the bazaar, you can be sure it's not pure ghee. It's going to be mixed with, at best, vegetable fats and quite possibly beef tallow also. And maybe some motor vehicle lubricant or whatever, because it has the same, the car lubricant has the same texture as ghee. So so they say we don't sell adulterated goods. Because they're saying that the Vaishnavas, they're selling adulterated goods. So there was all these movements came up as protest against the monopoly on Vaishnavism that was claimed by the caste Goswamis. On the one side there was the monopoly, on the other side that was considered orthodox Vaishnavism, on the other side there were all these Prakrita Sahajiyas who were influenced by bowels. It was a complete mess, or a zoo, as Prithu Prabhu would say. It was just a complete mess. Even if someone wanted to be a Vaishnava, they were really serious. I really want to be a Vaishnava and surrender to even the idea of surrender to Krishna. Even if someone had that inclination, they're almost certain to be misled by all kinds of bogus gurus and different groups and different ways. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur stood up with his sannyas danda and said, this is the way to follow Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all that is bogus. He stood up to show that all these things are bogus. Reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all, and also to give people a path that not only to point out what is the correct path to follow, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur had done to some extent, and it set up the Namhata, but to give a process that people can follow. We say, well, the process is already there. Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam. Everyone knew that. Chanting the holy names of Krishna. But how one can actually practice Krishna Bhakti in the world without being misled. If you don't want to be misled, then you have to follow according to Bhaktisiddhanta. What is correct means to show what is incorrect. All the wrong ideas that different people have. So many, even those who in many ways may seem to be very good, like Radharani Charana's Babaji, may seem to be very good. He brought many young people from respectable families. He himself, he was not a fish eater, which was considered just out of Bengali life. It's Vaishnava, non-Vaishnava, everyone eats fish. It's Ganga folk. It's just like the trees, they give fruits, and you just pick them. So the Ganga has fish, and you just take them out, and it's given by God, and that's it. You just take them. So he wasn't a fish eater, which was pretty good. He was not a lecher, which means not vyabhichari. But there was this Nitai Gaurati something, don't chant Hare Krishna loudly in Kirtan, which is the main thing for purification for the whole world is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So this was the kind of, I was saying, there were religious issues were big issues. So this was the kind of issue he took up, and he himself and his followers would have to meet people and again describe these things. Why this mantra which Radharaman said he got in a dream, Nitai Gaura, Bhaja Hare Krishna, Bhaja Nitai Gaura Nesham Japa Hare Krishna. Sorry. You can't just say I got it in a dream. Otherwise anyone can say. So people would come to him time and again, himself and his followers who he trained to preach would have to address the same misconceptions. Therefore, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave much importance to writing books, and actually he emphasized on magazines, which would take up all these points and present them systematically in written form, so that it's there for the preachers who want to imbibe this knowledge, so that they can, and the counter arguments to all the wrong ideas. And for people themselves, the people in general, who may be confused, well, what's wrong with this Nitai Gaura Nesham? What's wrong with this and what's wrong with that? And systematically present. What's wrong with the Gauranagari power? There are some respectable gentlemen of Bhadradok, of Calcutta, who followed this Gauranagari power. It was a very big thing at the time. The idea that just as Krishna, he is the Rajavaranagar, Bhaktivinoda Thakur described him. He's the playboy of Vrindavan. He enjoys the gopis of Vrindavan. He's the supreme enjoyer. So it's the same thing, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is, they don't worship him as sannyasi, they worship him in household life. He is Nadia Nagari. He enjoys the young women of Nadia. Nadia is the old name for Navadip, what is now called. At that time, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was here, the town which is now Navadip town, that area is called Kulia, and Nadia, now that's called Navadip, although actually Navadip is a broader area. Anyway, that's meaning. So there were these issues which Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur took up, and he wrote it and put it in writing. And particularly this Gauriya magazine, particularly on this. All the different arguments. What is right and what is wrong. And there's so many wrong things in the world. People are misled by what is right and what is wrong. We can't even begin to properly advance in spiritual life unless we know what is right and what is wrong. Or even among the things that are right, what is best. So this knowledge is required, especially in this age of confusion. In this age of confusion, Krishna is Swadhama Bhagate Dharma Jnana Vivisa Kalo Nashta. Hello, Nashtatu Shamesha Purana. In this age of Kali, Krishna, who is the very person of Dharma and Jnana, he left this world, he went to his own place, but he remained in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, which gives light in this dark age. But that very Bhagavatam had been taken by people and to project darkness by misrepresenting it. So on the basis of Bhagavatam, which begins with the proposition, Vedyam Vasa Vatra Vastu, Shivadam Tatma Trayam Nulanam, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of the essence of the Vedas, of all knowledge. This is it. It uproots the threefold mysteries. It is distinguishes reality from illusion for the welfare of all. So taking up that spirit, Bhaktisiddhanta, he spoke at length. Generally, he either speaking informally to people. In his room, he would often, in various places, he would meet with educated people. Or speaking to his disciples, or whoever else would come, in the mart. Minimum, he would speak 2 hours at a session. Often 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. Nowadays people won't stay. Or even if they stay, they can't hear. Because the attention span is very short. Especially watching television actually decreases one's ability to concentrate on any subject. Because the screen is also, I've seen on the advertisement, they'll show one image, then another completely different image. Within 1 minute there may be 30 or 40 different things or flashing onto the screen. So people, they're not used to putting their attention into any topic. And you really have to put your attention in if you're to understand anything at all, because his way of speaking is such that if you, the transpositions of the lectures, which are there in Bengali, you can't multitask when you're reading it. You have to put your full attention into understanding it. And even most educated Bengalis can't understand it. You need to take some time to understand what it means, his method of presentation. So he spoke in a very high-blown scholarly style, but spoke and wrote, and many of his the very important essays in the Gauriya magazine, which establish so many principles. They're either directly written by him or taken from specific lectures of his, or given by his disciples on the basis of his teachings. It was in a difficult style, but in an actual precise style. So precise that no one can reinterpret this. Just don't lean on the temple. Better not to. But even his own disciples would find it difficult to understand what he said. Even our own Srila Prabhupada, he said, I used to listen to him. I didn't understand what he said, but I would listen. And Bhaktisiddhanta really appreciated it. It's standard in the Math when Sridhar Maharaj was present. He also had a very scholarly background. He was Brahmin by birth. So at that time, Brahmin by birth meant, in most cases, that you attended Pathshala, which means you were trained in Sanskrit and studying at least one Veda. So he had the background of being able to understand even the language, mostly people, ordinary Bengalis couldn't understand it because it used many Sanskrit terms, Shastra terms. So often after the lectures, the devotees would go to Sridhar Maharaj and say, can you tell us what he said? And he would explain it in more simple language. Anyway, such a personality was in this world. Even up to less than 80 years ago, still there. So you all take that spirit. You can't be like him. It's not possible to be exactly like him. But that same spirit of intensity in Krishna consciousness. I must be Krishna conscious. Of course, not everyone can be a sannyasi like him and be fully engaged without any other diversion. But he expected his married disciples also just to do minimally what they required for maintaining their household affairs, and the rest of the time devotional service. He didn't think it was all right just to be a householder, chant a little Hare Krishna at home, come sometimes, put a few rupees in the box, say Hari Bol and go. He expected dedication to serve the mission, to work hard for the mission. That was his standard. If they lived close to the mat, they must come daily to the mat and engage in this hearing and chanting, and services. That was required. Hare Krishna. Having spoken about the 6-hour lectures, you might have thought, oh no, we're going to have to sit here for another 5 hours, so I'll spare you from that. Not that I can even speak from that, but we can go on. I have to cut out for some various bodily reasons. So 12 o'clock is supposed to be the Pushpanjali. So in the meantime, you can either chant relevant kirtans, or if you want, you can read something from it. Choose something. I don't know if you have time to read that real, false and genuine and false God bhajan. Even if you start, it's long, yeah, but you get the general idea from that. That must be in volume 3. Or even if you can't finish, there's the Gauriya Mat. What is that?
The only way.
Is Gauriya Mat the only way? That's short. But there's another one. What Gauriya Mat stands for. You know the one who says that the Gauriya Mat is it's not meant to be like a mother or a father. It's not meant for hospitals. What does the Gauriya Mat do? You can read that, even the beginning, that people get an idea. Do you know which article I'm referring to? I used to know this book in the computer version. It's inside out. What is the Gauriya Mat? No, that's the short one. The Gauriya Mat, its message and activities. This article was published in Bhakti Godhead, changing Gauriya Mat to the Krishna consciousness movement, or Hare Krishna. Yeah, this is written in a very grand style. 12:15. We were told 12:15, and then you told me 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock is vulgar. Okay, you can read this. The Gauriya Mat, its message and activities. The organization